So in module 1, we have discussed types of problems. What are the types of problems researchers are interested in? We have discussed that 7 types of problems we have discussed, right? Today we'll discuss fundamental data structures. These fundamental data structures also you have already studied in your 3rd semester, data structures and application subjects, right? So we'll discuss that. Fundamental data structures. A data structure can be defined as a particular scheme of organizing related data items. So where we are going to organize this? We are going to organize this in the memory. How it will be stored in the memory, how it will be accessed. That is called data structure. Okay, data structure, it's a method of arranging the data items. Method of arranging the data items where it is in the memory. Where it is stored, how it is stored and how it is accessed, that is also a type of data structure. So linear data structures. In linear data structures, we have 2 major types, that is arrays and linked lists. And a one-dimensional array or an array is a sequence of n items of the same data type that are stored continuously or contiguously in computer memory and made accessible by specifying value of the array's index. So you know that array is a collection of data items of the same type. It will be stored in the continuous memory locations. It will be stored in the continuous or contiguous memory locations, and it will be accessed by specifying the array index. If you want to access a particular element from the array, what you can do, you can just specify the index of that. First, for example, if you want to access 5th item, you can specify a of 5 and you can access that. That is called index. That 5 is called index, right? Each and every element of an array can be accessed in the same constant amount of time, regardless of where in the array the element is in the question is located. So wherever it is located, since we are specifying the index, we can access with the same amount of time. Okay, wherever it is located, even though you have 100 elements, since you are specifying the index or subscript of the array element, it can be accessed in the same amount of time. This feature positively distinguishes arrays from linked lists. So this is one of the feature which is different from the linked list. Which one? That is accessing the array element, specifying the index. So this is the example of an array with 10 elements. So your array index usually begins with 0. So item of 0, item is the array name. You can give any array name. Item is the array name. Item of 0 is the first element. Item of 1 is the second element. And item of n minus 1 is the nth element. So this is array of n elements. And this is how it will be stored in the memory. In contiguous memory locations, it will be stored. A linked list is a sequence of 0 or more elements called nodes, each containing 2 kinds of information. So some data and 1 or more links called pointers to other nodes of the linked list. So linked list is a collection of nodes. Each node will be having 2 information. One is the data part or information part. Another one is the header part or your pointer part. So it's a link part. Link also, we can call it as link. It will be having that pointer part, it will be having link to the next node. Or it might be having link to the previous node, depending on what kind of linked list we are using. So in a singly linked list, each node except the last one contains a single pointer to the next element. So in the singly linked list, what happens? We'll be having number of nodes and each node will be having information part, and the next part will be having the address of the next node. To access a particular node of a linked list, we start with the list first node and traverse the pointer chain until the particular node is reached. So what we do, we begin with the first one. We begin with the first one. That is usually we call it as header node, that is first node, and that header node will be having the address of the first node. Using that first node, and in each node will be having the address of the next node. right? So we are going to traverse using this pointer in the linked list. Thus, the time needed to access an element of a singly linked list depends on where in the list the element is located. Since we have to access using the pointers, it will take time. So first element will be accessed faster when compared to accessing the nth element, because it has to move to nth pointer that is from the beginning. So it will take time. So this is the example for singly linked list. So here we have n number of nodes, item 0, that is first item, item 1, it is second item, and so on up to item n minus 1, it is nth item. So you can notice that each node will be having, wait for a minute. So here what happens? So if you want to access particular element, that is, for example, if you want to access the second element from the first element, you have to take the pointer to the next element, get the address of that, and then get the address of the first element, and then consider that we can reach that element and you can read the information from that. Okay, like that, if you want to access the n minus 1th element, that is nth element, you have to get the address from n minus 1th node. Okay, that is previous node of that. On the positive side, linked lists do not require any preliminary reservation of the computer memory like we do in array. And insertions and deletions can be made quite efficiently in a linked list by reconnecting a few appropriate pointers. Okay, so here we need not to allocate the memory or reserve the memory at the compile time. So we can allocate the memory at the runtime, and insertion and deletions will be made efficiently in a linked list by using appropriate pointers. So it is convenient to start a linked list with a special node called the header. Usually, header node contains the information like current length of the node, that is how many elements we have in that node, and then the address of the first element, and a pointer to the linked list last element. That is, this depends on the programmer. Again, if you want to store the address of the last element also, you can do that. Another extension is the structure called the doubly linked list. This also you have studied. Doubly linked list will be having, again, it's a collection of nodes. Each node will be having information part and two address part or two link part. That is first, that is previous link will be having the address of the previous node, and next link will be having the address of the next node. Right? Except the first and the last node contains pointers to both its successor and the predecessor. That is previous node and the next node. Okay, successor and predecessor. Successor means next node, predecessor means previous node. Okay, so except the first and last, except the first and last contains two pointers. Okay, so this is the example for doubly linked list. So you can notice that item 0, item 1, so on up to item n minus 1 we have. First node for the previous node, for the first node will not be having any previous node, right? So it will be null. So previous part will be having null, previous address part. Next address part will be having the address of the next node. Similarly, last one, for the last one will not be having the next node. That's why next part of the last node will be null, and previous part of the last node will be having the address of the previous element. Remaining nodes will be having information part plus previous node address and next node address. A list is a finite sequence of data items, that is a collection of data items arranged in certain linear order. So the basic operations that can be performed on this data structure are searching, inserting, and deleting an element. Two special types of list are stacks and queues. A stack is a list in which insertions and deletions can be made at only one end called top of the stack. This end is called the top because a stack is usually visualized not horizontally but vertically. Okay, it will be visualized as vertical one. Okay, so stack is a list of elements where insertion and deletion takes place at only one end called top of the stack, right? As a result, when elements are added to, that is when we push the element a stack and push the element to a stack and deleted from, that is pop the element from the stack, the structure operates in the last in first out. So one end will be closed, only one end, top of the stack will be open, exactly as the stack of plates does if we can remove only the top plate or add another plate to top of the stack. That is, if it is if the plates are arranged in vertical fashion, then we can imagine like that. Stack will operate like that. Stacks have many applications. They are indispensable for implementing recursive algorithms. So we have many applications of stacks. You have learned about conversion of infix to postfix, evaluation of postfix expression. You have learned that, right? And here mainly it is used for recursive algorithms. So recursion, when you call the recursion system, we have a system stack in the system that will be very useful when we are working on the stack. Okay? Sorry, when we are working on the recursion. Next one is queue. A queue is a list from which elements are deleted from one end, that is called front end, and it will be added, that is elements are added on the other end called rear end. So you can imagine any of the queue, that is queue in front of the theater for taking the tickets, or the queue where you stand for paying the fees. You can imagine that. So you cannot enter in the front. It is not possible. You have to enter at the end of the queue only. That is at the rear. At the rear end only you have to enter. Beginning it will not allow you to enter, right? So it is queue is, you can imagine any of the queue. Any of the queue, that is like where you are collecting ticket or where you are paying the fees. Okay, so you can imagine that. So in the rear end you have to enter, and from the front, the first person who paid the fees first will come out. So from the front only they'll come out, right? That is queue. The queue operates in the first in first out manner. The first who enter the queue will first come out. That is the concept. So first in first out. Queues also have many important applications, including several algorithms for graph problems. Many important applications, you'll learn about graph problems, you'll come to know. Many important applications require selection of an item of the highest priority among a dynamically changing set of candidates. So usually in the system, we'll be having a priority queue, that is for scheduling the processes. So a process which is having highest priority has to execute first. So when we provide the priority for each processes, so based on the highest priority, the one which is having highest priority will be executed first, and that will be removed from the queue and it will be executed. That is the concept of scheduler. So here, data structure that seeks to satisfy the need of such application is called a priority queue. So we call priority queue for such a queue which uses priorities. Based on the priority, if it removes the item, that is called as priority queue. A priority queue is a collection of data items from a totally ordered universe. So ordered because for each element, for each item in the queue will be having a priority. Based on the priority only, we are going to remove the element. The principal operations on a priority queue are finding its largest element, deleting its largest element, and adding a new element. Okay, largest element in the sense that the element which is having highest priority. Okay, that will be added first, that will be removed first. So graphs. Next data structure is graphs. A graph is informally thought of as a collection of points in the plane called vertices or nodes, some of them connected by line segments called edges or arcs. So this we have discussed in the last class. This is informal definition. It's a collection of vertices and edges, right? So formal definition of a graph is G is equal to V comma E is defined by a pair of two sets, the finite set V of vertices and set E of edges. Okay, that is here each edge is a pair of vertices, right? Each edge is a pair of vertices. That's what they have given here. E of pairs of these items. These items means vertices. Okay. V is a set of edges and sorry, V is a set of vertices and E is a set of edges. If these pairs of vertices are unordered, that is, we don't have order for these pair of vertices. That is, for example, U comma V is same as V comma U. U comma V is same as V comma U. We say that vertices U and V are adjacent to each other and that they are connected by undirected edge. Okay, we don't have any direction. We don't have any direction whether from U to V or V to U. Okay, so here when we don't have any direction, it is called as undirected edge and it will be adjacent. Okay, it will be adjacent to each other. We call the vertices U and V endpoints of the edge, U comma V within the bracket, it is edge. Okay, and say that U and V are incident to this edges, to this edge. We call U and V are incident to this edge. We also say that the edge U comma V is incident to its endpoints U and V. A graph G is called undirected if every edge in it is undirected. All the edges in this is undirected means it is undirected graph. If a pair of vertices U comma V is not same as V comma U, that means we have direction for that edge. We have direction for that edge. We say that the edge U comma V is directed from the vertex U called the edge tail to the vertex V called the edge head. That is where we have that arrow. That arrow wherever we have, that is called as head, and another end is called as tail. Another end is called as tail. We also say that edge U comma V leaves U and enters V. Okay, it leaves U and enters V. A graph whose every edge is directed is called directed graph. The graph whose every edge is directed is called directed graph. Directed graphs are also called digraphs. Directed graphs are also called as digraphs. Digraphs means, remember that it's all edges are directed. The graph in the following figure, okay, I'll show you the figure. Okay, the graph in this figure, that is 1.6a, it is undirected graph, and in 1.6b we have digraph. Digraph means directed graph. V is equal to A, B, C, D, E, F. It's a set of vertices. And E is equal to, you can check out the pairs AC, AD, BC, BF, CE, DE, EF. These are the edges for the undirected graph. The digraph in figure 1.6b has 6 vertices and 8 directed edges. So V is equal to A, B, C, D, EF again. And E is equal to AC, BC, BF, CE, DA, DE, EC, EF. Same set of vertices here, same set of edges also here, but it has direction. Since multiple edges between the same vertices are not allowed in an undirected graph, that is, we are not considering such a graph here. Okay. we have the following inequality for the number of edges E, that is, it is in two parallel lines, means it is number of edges E possible in an undirected graph with number of vertices V and no loops. We are considering no loops and no multiple edges in between the same vertices. Okay. So edges E greater than or equal, number of edges E greater than or equal to 0, and it is less than or equal to number of vertices into number of vertices minus 1 divided by 2. That is, here we have some precondition, that is, we don't have multiple edge between the same vertices and we don't have any loops in the graph. Okay. A graph with every pair of vertices connected by an edge is called complete. If we have edges between every pair of vertices, for example, if we have A, B, C, D as 4 vertices, in between all the pair of vertices like A to B, A to C, A to D, A to then B to A, B to C, B to D, in each and every pair of vertices, if it is, we have edges, then it is called complete graph. A standard notation for the complete graph with number of vertices V is KV. A graph with relatively few possible edges missing is called dense graph. Okay, only one or two edges missing or few edges missing, it is called dense graph. So number of edges is more in that. Okay. So graph with few edges relative to the number of its vertices is called sparse graph. That is, if we have only few edges in the graph, that is called sparse graph. Number of edges will be less in the graph. That is called as sparse graph. So graph representation, we know that graph can be represented using two, that is in the computer in two method, that is, one is adjacency matrix, another one is adjacency list. This also you have studied, right? The adjacent matrix of a graph with 10 vertices is an n by n Boolean matrix with one row and one column for each of the graph's vertices, in which the element in the ith row and jth column is equal to 1 if there is an edge from the ith vertex to the jth vertex, and equal to 0 if there is no such edge. So we know that it is n cross n matrix when we have n number of vertices, and ith row jth column value will be 1 if we have edge from ith vertex to the jth vertex. Otherwise, the value will be 0. When we have no edge, then it will be, the value will be 0 from ith vertex to the jth vertex. For example, the adjacency matrix for the graph in 1.6a is given in 1.7a. Note that the adjacency matrix of an undirected graph is always symmetric. What is symmetric? A of ij is equal to A of ji. That is, for example, you can notice that A to C is 1, C to A is also 1. Then A to D is 1, D to A is 1. So it is symmetric. That is, when you fold your matrix along the diagonal element, okay, when you fold it, so you will get the same elements. You can notice that through A to C, you can notice that A to C and C to A, it is same. Then B to C and C to B, it will be same. Okay, B to C and C to B, it will be same. And then A to D and D to A, it will be same. That is, when you fold it along the diagonal of the matrix, you'll get the same element. That's why it is called as symmetric. Okay. So you can notice that if we have an edge, the value will be 1. Otherwise, value will be 0. So A to C, we have an edge. So A to C is 1. A to E, we don't have edge. So it will be 0. Okay. Graph representations using adjacency list. The adjacency list of a graph or a digraph is a collection of linked lists, one for each vertex, that contains all the vertices adjacent to the list vertex. So one for each vertex will be having one linked list for each vertex will have the set of linked list. Such lists start with a header identifying a vertex for which the list is compiled. For example, we have this adjacency list for the graph, undirected graph. So from A, C is connected, from A, D is connected. So A to C, C to D. So we'll be having set of pointers here. For A, one list, for B, one list, for C, one list, so on up to F. For all the vertex, we'll be having one list. This is one list. So A to B. Okay, this is one entire singly linked list. Okay, again, if you consider this, this is also an entire singly linked list. For each node, we'll be having a singly linked list. Okay, so such a list start with the header identifying a vertex for which the list is compiled. To put it in another way, adjacency lists indicate columns of the adjacency matrix that for a given vertex contains one. Okay, it's a column. That is, you can take the column of the adjacency matrix and you can write the adjacency list directly. So if a graph is sparse, the adjacency list representation may use less space than the corresponding adjacency matrix, despite the extra storage consumed by the pointers of the linked list, and the adjacency matrix is used for the dense graph. So I think you had this question, when to use when to use adjacency list and when to use adjacency matrix. So when you have dense graph, the number of edges in the graph is more, better to use adjacency matrix. When you have sparse graph, when the number of edges in the graph is less, then go for adjacency list. So which of the two representation is more convenient depends on the nature of the problem, on the algorithm used for solving it, and possibly on the type of input. Usually it will be on the type of input, that is whether it is a sparse graph or dense graph. For sparse graph, you use adjacency list, and for dense graph, you use adjacency matrix. Weighted graphs. A weighted graph is a graph or digraph with number of numbers assigned to its edges. Will be having some numbers or cost or weights for each edge in the weighted graph. An interest in such graph is motivated by numerous real-world applications, like finding the shortest path between 2 points in a transportation or communication network or the traveling salesperson problem. For all these, we need weighted graph. So consider this graph. So this, you can notice that for each edge will be having weights here. So A to B, we have weight 5. A to C, we have weight 1. B to C or C to B, we have weight 7. C to D, D to C, we have weight 2. B to D, we have weight 4. So this is the adjacency, cost adjacency matrix for the given undirected graph in figure A. Okay, so here you can notice that when we don't have the direct edge, we have the value infinity here, because we don't know. From A to A, we don't know. So it will be infinity. A to D, we don't know what is the cost. So it will be infinity. So if we don't know, we don't have the direct edge, then put the value infinity there. Otherwise, whatever the cost is there, you put it. So A to B, we have 5. B to A is also 5. A to C, we have 1. C to A is also 1. A to D, it is infinity. D to A is also infinity, because we don't have direct edge. Similarly, all the values are filled in the adjacency matrix like this. So this is the adjacency list with the cost. So for A to B, you can notice here, A to B, we have the cost here. Previously, we don't have the cost. There, it is just adjacency matrix. Adjacency matrix will be using zeros and ones. 1 if we have edge, 0 if we don't have edge. So here we have cost, so specify the cost. A to B is 5, A to C is 1. B to A is 5, B to C is 7. Sorry, B to A is 5, B to C is 7, and B to D is 4. So for each vertex, from each vertex, whatever the connections we have, that will be specified in the linked list. So this is the cost adjacency list. Okay, so there's a In figure A, we have weighted graph. In figure B, we have weight matrix or cost matrix, cost adjacency matrix, and cost adjacency list. I hope you understood these concepts. If you have any doubts, you can ask me.